So a tall boy as opposed to the tall boy. So if it's a tall boy, then both isms need to be empty of the al at the front. So waladun tawilun. And if it's the tall boy, then both isms would have the al. Al waladut tawilu, the tall boy. And that's an aspect in which the two must correspond. If one of them has it, the other one doesn't have it, then that would not be mawsuf and sifa. That would become another type of structure. It might become an invalid structure, or it might become something that's valid but has a different meaning altogether. It might become a sentence. It might become the boy is tall, which we don't know at this stage right now because we haven't introduced sentences. So let's continue. Definite, indefinite value needs to be the same. The fourth aspect in which the two will correspond is that their state would be the same. So if you look at the example on the screen, fil bayt al muslim, al bayt means house. The translation of the structure is in the dark house. So fi is inducing the kasra at the end of the word al bayt. It's a governing agent, and al bayt would be in the state of jar. Okay, if they were to ask you the question, what state is the word al bayt, and you would say jar. But not only is al bayt in jar, but al muslim is also in jar. So this is an example of an extension where the governing agent fi is influencing both isms that are following it. The first ism is being influenced directly, and al muslim is being influenced because it needs to match. So the fourth aspect in which the mawsuf and the sifa need to match is grammatical state. If one of them is in jar, then the other one will also be in jar. If one of them is in rafa, then the other one will also be in rafa. Which for our purposes right now, it means that the two will have the same ending. So al-bayti ends in a kasra, al-muslimi also ends in a kasra. And this concludes the rulings on the mawsuf and the sifa. Okay, now the next type of phrase, which is also an example of getting more than what we started off with. Okay, so the word kitab means book. When you combine it to Zayd and you do it in this particular way. Okay, now look what's happening. First of all, the word kitab does not have al. And also there's only one vowel at the end of it. It's not kitabun, but instead it's just kitabu. And at the same time we have Zayd that ends in kasras. When you do it in this particular way, we get an association. The translation is Zayd's book. Okay, so the meaning of kitab is book, and the meaning of Zayd is a person's name. But by doing it in this way, we get an additional meaning, which is possession, which we did not have when we started off. So by combining the two words together in this particular method, we get the additional meaning of possession. So possession is an example of a non-word meaning that did not come from the words, did not come from the vocabulary, but it came from the grammatical structure. And the translation of the structure is Zayd's book. Okay, the two halves of this type of phrase are called mudaf and mudaf ilayh. Mudaf is the noun that's at the front, the one that's being associated, or the thing that's possessed. And mudaf ilayh would be the possessor, or the one to which the previous ism was associated. Okay, so the first ism is called mudaf, and that's the noun which is possessed, and the second ism is the mudaf ilayh, which is the possessor, the word with the apostrophe in English. Okay. Again, the order of the words is opposite of that in English. So in English you would say Zayd's book, with Zayd appearing first and book delayed, but in Arabic it would be Kitabu Zaydin. Okay, and another example is like Allah's Messenger. The word with the apostrophe in English comes first, but Rasulullahi is the way it would be expressed in Arabic. And now let's go ahead with the rulings. Ruling number one, that the mudaf, the first word in the structure, would be empty of al. So you wouldn't say al-kitab, but you would say only kitab. Okay, and then that same word will also not have a second vowel, so you wouldn't have that tanween, and it's the n sound that's represented with the duplicating of the dhamma, or the duplicating of the fatha, or the duplicating of the kasra. You would not do that to the first ism. So this is like a rare instance in the language where a word would be empty of both. Normally it either has al or it has the tanween. So you say al-bayt versus baytun. Al-baytu baytun. So we take away the al, and then that tu becomes tun. But this is an instance where neither will have an al at the front, nor will it have a tanween at the end. So that's the first ruling. The second ruling is that move to the second word. The second word's grammatical state is fixed on jar, meaning that it would have kasras, like in the example that we saw on the previous screen, Kitabu Zaydin, din. So it's fixed on jar. The grammatical state of the mudaf is subject to the governing agent. Now this is important, and I'm going to give you a slide to really highlight it for you so you understand exactly what's being said here. But try to understand it abstract, and then when you see it, then inshallah that will fill the gap in the understanding. So if I have Zayd's book, the example would be Kitabu Zaydin. Now what's being said here is that Kitabu can change to Kitaba or Kitabi, but Zayd would not change. Zayd's grammatical state is fixed, and in all three examples it will be Zaydin, Zaydin, Zaydin. So if Zayd's book is doing something, you would say Kitabu Zaydin. If something is happening to Zayd's book, you would say Kitaba Zaydin. And if there's a preposition at the front, or if it's part of a possessive structure or something, then that could become Kitabi Zaydin. So Kitabu, Kitaba, Kitabi. So subject to the governing agent means it depends. So there's no fixed ending for the word Kitab, but there is the fixed ending for Zayd. Okay. So look at the three examples here. Okay. We have Zayd's house here. Saqata baytu Zaydin. Zayd's house fell down. Zayd's house fell down, and that's an example of the house occurring as a subject. So that's a rafa. Remember the he, him, his that was given in week 1. So the word bayt is the word that's influenced by saqata. So saqata baytu Zaydin. And in the second example, I entered Zayd's house. So here the word house is the object of the entry, so it's going to have a different last letter than I had in the previous example. So bayta Zaydin. And in the third example, we have door of Zayd's house. Door of Zayd's house. So Zayd possesses a house and the house possesses a door. You see that? So this also explains the absence of al. You see the word bab doesn't have al, and it only has one dhamma. Same thing with the bayt. No al and it only has one kasra. You see, and Zayd then has both kasras because it doesn't have al. So the rule does not apply to the second word, it only applies to the first. The no al, no tanween rule. So I think this slide is pretty sufficient in order to highlight what's being talked about. So let me summarize the rules for the mudaf and the mudaf ilayh one more time. Rule number 1, the mudaf would be empty of al and also tanween. And you can see that in 4 examples, all 4 examples. It's not 3, it's 4 examples. The word bayt, in the top example, saqata baytu, no al, no tanween. Dakhaltu bayta, no al, no tanween. Babu, no al, no tanween. Bayti, no al, no tanween. Because that third example is interesting because not only is it one possessive phrase, it's 2 of them. There's a relationship between the bab and the bayt, and there's another relationship between the bayt and the house. So like the number of words are 3, the meanings are 5. There's 5 meanings coming from babu, bayt, Zayd. There's the individual meaning of the door, the individual meaning of the house, and the individual meaning of Zayd. And then we have the association between the house and Zayd, and then we have the association between the door and the house. There's 5 total meanings, and that's an example of comprehensiveness. So 3 words are giving us 5 meanings. Is that fine? So that's the first rule, no al, no tanween. You can see it happening 4 times in the 3 examples in front of us. Okay, rule number 2, the grammatical state of the mudaf ilayh is fixed on jar. So in all 3 examples, Zaydin, 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 regardless of how the phrase is ultimately being used, the impact is not on Zayd. Zayd is Zaydin in all 3 examples. What changes would be the bayt word. In the first example we have baytu, in the second example we have bayta, and in the third example we have bayti. And that's because the grammatical state of the mudaf is subject to the governing agent, means that it depends on how the structure is how the phrase is used in the overall sentence. And this concludes everything you need to know about phrases. For now, the mawsul sifa, 2 isms, the second describing the first, they need to correspond. The gender needs to be the same. Waladun tawilun versus bintun rashidatun. Okay, the definite indefinite value needs to be the same. So if the noun at the front is indefinite, then both of them will be stripped of al. And if the noun at the front is definite, then both of them will have al. Okay, the plurality needs to be the same. So either both of them singular, both of them dual, or both of them plural. Al-waladani tawilani, the 2 tall boys. Ar-rijalul muslimuna, the Muslim man. And then the grammatical state needs to be the same. Fil baytil muslimi, in the dark house. So not only is it al-bayti, but it's al-baytil muslimi. Both of them have the same ending. You see on the screen right now, the mudaf mudaf ilayh, they don't have the same ending. In the case of the third example, babu bayti Zaydin, bayti and Zaydin do have the same ending, but that's not because of this. That's not because they needed to match. It's because bab is causing the kasra on bayt, and bayt is then causing the kasra on Zayd. So it's a coincidence that they have the same ending. And try to ponder on that last comment I just made about the correspondence that's occurring in babu bayti Zaydin. It's a coincidence. Whereas in waladun tawilun, it was part of the structure. It needed to be the case that the two needed to match. Fil bayt al-muslimi, in the dark house. And I'm going to stop the video here, inshallah. In the next one, we're going to speak about sentences, and then we'll wrap it up with the variations of the past tense verb.